Hello and welcome. So let's do some automated cryptocurrency live trading with real money. I think it's easier to understand what is going on by visualizing in a chart what we are going to do. So first of all, we are requesting live data from Binance via the Binance API. In specific, we are using the Binance Socket Manager. Then we are doing some data cleaning to the requested data with Python and store the cleaned up data in a SQL database. This database is being fed every second with live price data from this first Python script. After that, we are accessing this live updated database with a second Python script. Then apply a simple trend following trading strategy and execute real money orders. Before we are starting, we seriously need to talk. So I took a look at my analytics and I'm thankful for all people watching my videos, but please be so kind if you enjoy them or can extract value out of them to consider subscribing. Thank you very much in advance. To better follow along, I recommend to watch my videos on Python and SQL. You don't need SQL syntax knowledge, but you should have an idea about the intersection of Python and SQL. Also, please check out the video on the Binance API. All links are in the video description. Some disclaimers, I'm not reading them out, but please check them out beforehand. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so let's get started with the first script. This script is getting live price data from Binance using the Binance Socket Manager and is storing this live data into a SQLite database. We need some libraries to achieve that. We need pandas for data cleaning. We need SQL Alchemy to establish a connection to our SQLite database, which we haven't created yet. And we need to import from Binance client. We need to import the client and also the Socket Manager. Okay, so in the first step, as in my previous video on the Binance API, we are setting up the client by providing our API key and our secret key. So I already created these variables in the script here. They're just not visible, so you would need to define them in the script here, right? So in my case, they're defined. Okay, we have set up the client and now we can use this client to use the Binance Socket Manager. So I will link the official documentation here in the video description, and there are many ways to implement WebSockets here with the Python wrapper. And I'm using the manual way, so this one here, but you can also use this one or this one. Just take a look at that. I'm using this way in case you're wondering. So what do I have to do? First of all, I'm setting up the Binance Socket Manager. So I'm defining BSM here, use the Binance Socket Manager and provide the client. With that, I've set it up and now I have to define my socket. So which data do I want to pull? And there are many possibilities to pull data. You can pull candlestick charts or candlestick price data and stuff like that, but I'm just using simple price data. And therefore I'm creating a socket variable, use BSM and provide the trade socket here and define the symbol for what I want to get data. And I'm just using the Bitcoin here in relation to the US dollar stable coin, right? So we can execute that and we have defined our socket here. Now, how is this working? Regarding the documentation, we can use the manual way here by providing it in the following way. We can use await, then use the socket and the magic method enter here or a enter here. Then define our message as the receive function and print out this message. And let's execute that and you will understand what's going on here. If we're executing that, we are getting something like this. And this is containing some information, but essentially it is just a timestamp with the time we are getting this price data, which is this E here in a Unix timestamp format. and some other information, but we only are interested in this P, which is the price on this timestamp here, right? And this is basically what we are going to do in the next step. We want to transform this dictionary here into a more readable format, right? And we have pandas to achieve that. So this is the next step. We are creating a function which is transforming this into a readable format here. So I'm creating a function here, create frame or create data frame, which is taking the message received from the Binance Socket Manager as an argument. And what this function is doing is this is transforming this message, first of all, to a data frame. So I'm setting up a variable here, df, and create a data frame out of this message here. In the next step, I'm just filtering this for the E, the event time, the S, the symbol, and the price here, the P. So this is my next step. I'm just using a log function to achieve that. I take all rows here, which is basically senseless because this is just one row. And we are providing S, this the symbol again, E, this is the timestamp, and P, which is the price. Okay, data filtered, perfect. Now we are transforming those column names into readable column names. So we are defining the columns as symbol, time, and price, right? And now you have to understand that when you're using a dictionary like that, you won't get the price, which is here, as a float value, but as a string value. You see that here. So this is a string format, and we want to have that as a float value. Why? Because we want to make some calculations with the price data and so on. So this is what I'm doing in the next step. I'm just transforming the price into a float. So I'm using df price as type float. Okay, perfect. Now I want to get rid of this basically not readable time format and use a standard time format here. And pandas has a nice function for that. So I'm using pd to datetime, provide the time here, and take the unit as ms. And this is just transforming this timestamp into a real one in quotation marks, because this is also real one, but in a not readable format. At least for me, not readable format. And after that, we are returning the data frame. So no worries, we are testing that out, that you will understand what this is about. So if I'm calling this function now and provide our message here, you will see that I'm just getting a data frame which is containing a timestamp with the exact time, as you see here, and the price as a floating value, right? So this is what this function is about. Now, the idea in general is now to use this data frame and store that into a SQLite database, right? And to access a SQLite database, we have to define an engine. And as I said in the beginning, I've explained that in my Python SQL videos, so I'm just writing it down here. So I'm creating an engine here and use the SQL Alchemy library, create an engine, and use SQLite, as we're working with SQLite here. And I'm just defining a database here. Let's call that BTC USD stream. Now I want to update this database every time I'm receiving a new price from Binance. And how can I achieve that? By combining this with the create frame function and then store that frame to a SQL database. And we have the handy toSQL function, which I've explained in my Python and SQL videos. So how can I do that? I'm using an enter loop here, while true. So you have to stop that manually when you have finished. Otherwise, you will have a very, very large database with the timer, right? So what do we have to do? we are applying, or we are creating a variable first, and then we are applying the create frame function to the message. Then we are using the toSQL function here, define a table name, BTC USDT, provide our engine, which is our BTC USDT stream, use if that already exists, I want to append that, and I'm providing the index as false. And in the end, I'm printing out the frame so that we are getting an output what actually is going on. And when I'm clicking this, or when I'm executing this, I'm getting an endless request to the Binance server that the Binance server is providing me price data. And I'm storing, every second, I'm storing a new row in this format into my SQLite database, right? And let's execute that and see what is going on. And now we see we are getting live price data here. Pretty nice, right? And it's not only printed out, but it is stored in our SQLite database, right? So every row you see here is being stored in our SQLite database. And we will request this data in some seconds when opening up our second script. But that's it for now. So we have successfully created a live updated database. Okay, now let's open up the second script. We can call that crypto live trading. And first of all, I have to import my API key and my secret key. So I'm just running a notebook where I've stored that. So you can skip this step. You can just define that as variables here again. And I have to import SQL Alchemy again, pandas, and also the client. Let's zoom a bit in here. I think it's better. Okay, Binance. From Binance, import client. And I'm setting up the client again. API key and API secret. And set up the engine again. Alchemy. Create engine. SQLite. Then we call that BTC USDT stream, right? Hopefully. And now I'm showing you how this is working. I'm just creating a variable, the f here, use the read SQL function and read out the created BTC USDT table, right? And provide the engine here. And now you will see when we are printing out this variable that this having live data, right? So if I'm executing this again, so remember this, or you can remember the rows, 641 as the index here. If I'm executing that again, I'm getting new rows as I'm getting live updated data here, right? And this is kind of awesome, right? So of course you can plot that. So as a project for you, you can use Matplotlib to create a live chart out of that. Pretty interesting thing. And now you can analyze this very granular, I hope this word exists, very small piece data I'm talking about. And now you can analyze patterns on a very granular base, right? So we could plot this price here and see that here's something going on in just some seconds, right? And this is kind of, at least in my opinion, kind of awesome to trade such small time horizons here, right? So if I'm updating that, getting a new chart here. So yeah, but enough talking, let's trade a bit. And we are creating a trend following strategy here. So I have a video on my channel on that. So I'm just writing down the strategy here. So this is a really simplified strategy, of course. And it is kind of dependent on your feedback if I'm continuing this series. So my last video performed really bad. I don't know why that is. Maybe you're more interested in stocks. But I think it would be pretty interesting to apply some technical analysis to this data and continue this series. At least I think that's pretty nice, because cryptocurrencies are rather, in my experience, traded with technical indicators. I don't know why that is, but they work pretty good on cryptocurrencies. So our strategy is, if the asset or if the crypto was rising by X%, so by some percentage, we want to buy, and we want to exit the trade when profit is above 0.15% or loss is crossing minus 0.1%, right? So again, we are just checking how was the asset performing over the last, let's say, 60 seconds. And if we are crossing a certain threshold, we are buying the asset, right? And we are selling when the profit is above 0.15% or the loss is crossing minus 0.15%. Okay, so let's code that. We are just calling that strategy. We need an entry point, which is just this X here, right? The asset should have performed higher than this entry parameter, and then we are buying. We have to define a look back period. So how much time do we want to go back? So if this is 60, we are going 60 time steps back. So one time step, as you saw, is just 1 second roughly. So if this is 60, we are going back 60 seconds. If this is 120, we are going back 2 minutes, and so on, right? We need a quantity which we want to trade, and we need to set a Boolean value here. This will make sense in some seconds. It's just telling us if we have an open position, important for the selling condition. Okay, so first of all, I'm defining an infinite loop here. And this loop is just requesting data from the database with this function here, right? So we are just getting fresh data with every iteration. So we can, basically just copy paste this line here. And this is, as said, requesting live data. Now we are defining a look back period here. And this is just filtering this data frame for the last defined time steps here. So I'm just using minus look back, and this is just filtering until this time period. All right. Then I'm accumulating the returns over this look back period. So now I'm just applying a cumulative return formula. I've explained that in many other videos on my channel. I'm not going into details here. Look back period, price. We're taking the percentage change, add a 1, take the cumulative product out of that and subtract a 1 here. So this is just summing up in quotation marks the returns over this look back period. Now we are saying if not open position. So if we don't have an open position, we want to check if this cumulative return is above our defined entry, right? So simple if clause here, if this cumulative return, and now I'm taking the last valid entry of this cumulative return series. This is basically just the very last row. So I'm taking the last valid index here, and I'm just getting the value of the most recent cumulative return. And this should be larger than the entry. And what is happening now? Now, if this is the case, we want to place a buying order, right? And I've explained that in my last video already. So we're just using the client, create an order, define the symbol as BTC USDT. Of course, you can use parameters even more, right? So you can provide the symbol as a parameter to this function. I'm just not doing that here. We have to define the side as the buy side because we want to buy the asset, and we're just placing a market order here. And the quantity is just my provided quantity. With that, we have placed a buying order. So we want to print out this order afterwards, that we are getting the feedback that buying order has been placed, and we are getting some conditions. What was the price of this order? What was the time? And so on. After that, we are setting the open position to true. And after that, very important, we are breaking this while loop here, because this shouldn't get any more data and should not open up positions after we have opened up a position here. This is why we are breaking this loop after that. Okay, this is our buying condition, right? And now we need to define our selling condition. So I'm going here and say, okay, if the open position is true, I'm again using a while loop, which is getting data as above here. So I can just copy paste. And defining, that is really important, the since by returns. So first of all, I'm slicing this data frame for only the time steps after I've bought the asset. So I'm defining a since by variable here, use df log, and I'm providing a condition here. The time should be larger than the transaction time of the order. So this order has a property which is called transaction time, and this is including a timestamp which we can translate to a normal timestamp. So we are just using the toDateTime function again and provide the order, and then take the let's structure that better, transact time here. And we have to provide the unit as ms here. So this is just transforming this Unix timestamp to a readable timestamp, and is enabling us to use this condition. So again, this is just filtering for only the time after we have bought the asset. Okay, now we are doing the following. We are specifying if the length of this since by data frame is larger than 1. Why that? Because otherwise we could, as we are working with second updated data, we could get the situation that we are getting an empty frame here, right? So this is what we want to avoid with that. Otherwise we would get an error here. So this is why I'm providing this condition. And now I have to calculate the return since I bought this asset. And this is basically just copy paste from the syntax above. So this is just, again, the cumulative return formula, percentage change +1, then the cumulative product, and then -1. And can I zoom a bit out here? Yes. So I think it's better if you see all the syntax. How can we structure that? Yeah, whatsoever. We are, one second. Oh no, I think that's better, right? Maybe a bit small, but I think you should see that. Now, now we wanna, again, take the very last entry, same logic as above. So we wanna get the cumulative return in the very last entry, which is the cumulative return until now. So I'm just defining a last entry variable here. Use since by red, and again use this last valid index function, since by red, last valid index, and yeah. And now I have, so this variable contains the cumulative return, or the return until now from the buying point on. So we can only define our selling condition. So if this last entry is larger than 0.0015, so 0.15%, or this last entry is lower than minus 0.0015, then we want to place a selling order, right? So we want to define an order here, client, create order, and I'm just copy pasting now. Don't want to waste your time here. So I have to amend this to sell, same quantity as the buying quantity. And what else do we need to do? We have to print out this order again, that we're getting a feedback that the selling order has been placed, and very important, we have to break this while loop once the selling order has been executed. Okay, nice. So this is the trend following strategy. Let's execute that. And let's test that out. Okay, so to make it a bit more engaging, I've opened up the live chart of Bitcoin, which is pretty sad today. And I probably wouldn't trade this strategy today. But it is how it is. Let's place our trades, or let's execute our function and see if we are lucky placing trades. So let's say asset should have risen by 0.1% over the last 60 seconds, and we want to buy 0.1%. Let's see. So you see the threshold is not yet crossed. Now it's crossed, you saw. Now it's crossed, and we bought the asset. And now the asset is being sold if we are crossing 0.15% profit or minus 0.15% loss here. So this is not happening right now, or didn't happen yet, but let's be a bit patient. So as said, our buying order was placed. Let's take a look here. Oh, looks not so good for us. Oh, there we are getting the message that the sell order has been placed, and we should get a message here as well, right? So we have successfully executed both orders, and now let's take a look at if we made profit. I doubt it, but let's see. We bought for 47k, and yeah, we made a slight profit here, right? We bought for 47.7k and we sold for 47.8k here, right? As a reminder, you should stop the live data script after you have finished trading for this day. Otherwise, you will have a really, really huge database really soon. So I'm stopping this and I'm not getting live data anymore. And yeah, that's it. So probably not the best day to trade today, but nevertheless, we placed 2 trades, and I think it's very interesting, this topic, right? And I would continue producing stuff here, like applying some technical indicators and some more long-term tests of those trading strategies. So let it run for 1 day, for example. I think such topics are pretty interesting, but I think you are rather into stocks. So I would be happy if you provide me feedback if this is interesting for you. I'm not quite sure. And yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing the upcoming videos. Bye bye.